about to start the next section of the workshop, which is world building. I gave you guys some time to think about some possible environments you guys might want to build using Unity. Does anyone want to share? You can put it in the chat and you can raise your hand here. Does anyone want to share what they have in mind, something they might want to build? A low poly world, very cool. Do you have is it going to be like an exterior environment or like a forest? Okay, for sure. Yeah, basic is good, and I'm going to actually show you where you can find some really nice low poly assets that you can use for that. We're going to learn how to import models properly and set them up properly in our project. As you saw in Preksha's presentation earlier, there is a hierarchy and an asset library, and there are two different things, but both rely really heavily on organization. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to organize everything properly and make sure your files get in the project correctly so that everything looks right. So we are going to start now. It is 5:30. And I have my lesson plan here on my phone, so if I'm looking down and looking at my phone, I'm not ignoring you guys. I'm trying to make sure we are on schedule. All right. So real quick, we're going to go back to the Unity editor. I kind of reset everything to where it's supposed to be. Make sure that your camera, so make sure to click on main camera here and make sure that it's on Skybox instead of anything else. This is what makes it look like a 3D world. You might have changed it during the previous session when you were exploring and figuring things out, but this is kind of how we want it. The hierarchy on the left, inspector on the right, the scene in here, and the asset library down here. Those are really the few main things that you want. So we have our scene. We just looked at all of the windows and controls, everything that's possible within Unity, but today we're going to be using the basic controls and basic elements of Unity to build our own environment. So the first thing you might notice, it's empty, right? It's super empty. How do we get models? Well, in a lot of workflows, people make their own models and import them into Unity, whether that's using Blender or Maya. We're not going to be modeling our own models today, which might be good news for some of you because you're like, I don't know how to model. I personally like to find free assets, and a really good resource for that is the Unity Asset Store. So that is a store from Unity. It even has a tab for it right here on the top of the screen. It used to be built right into the editor, but now it's not. So you have to go to the browser, which is fine. It gives you a button for it, although I don't want to use Edge. I already have it open in Chrome. So if you click on that button and you go to the Unity Asset Store, you're going to see probably the main page, which is going to look something like this. You guys should all, and I will give you guys time to do this, make sure you sign in using your Unity ID. So whatever you use to set up Unity Hub, it should be, if you go to the Unity Hub, the top left corner, you should see your account settings. So if you forgot your username or password, you can go to that and check. So I will give you guys time to log into the Unity Asset Store here, because if you're not logged in, then it won't know where to add those assets to. So I'll just give you guys a couple minutes here for you guys to log in. So once you're logged into the Unity Asset Store, you can search for any kind of asset you want. So luckily for this person right here, if you look up low poly environment, you can find tons of asset packs that will help you build out an environment. So for those of you that don't know, low poly means low polygon. So those are assets that are very cartoonish looking. They're not going to break your computer because it has a low polygon count. So it doesn't have a bunch of different edges. It's very blocky, maybe. Think Minecraft. Something like this, right? So there are a lot of asset packs on the asset store that you have to pay for. Some are really crazy and really high quality stuff, but I'm not going to make you guys pay for anything today. You can go to pricing and filter through by just clicking free assets, and so now all of these are free. So if you're looking for this low poly environment pack, this is going to be packs with tons of assets that will allow you to combine with each other to build out a whole environment. So as you can see, there's this gardeny kind of thing. This one has a desert. I think this one actually opened up over here. This one has a bunch of different environments that you can do. They have like a desert and a forest kind of environment. So this is a really nice one if you want to use. And I think I am probably going to go with this one because it's the most versatile. I think this picture shows they got like a desert and a forest. So I'm going to add that to my assets by clicking this button, accept whatever terms they ask for. And so now you should have a pop-up that says added to my assets. You're going to open it in Unity and make it super nifty, and then you can allow it to open there. And then it will open up this window called Package Manager. So this is going to show you everything that you've downloaded from the asset store, and they're called packages. It'll be in your Package Manager, but it's not in your project yet. You have to download it to get in your project. And for some reason, this one is like loading, but don't worry about that. Okay. So to download it, you just click the download button, and it might take a while, but luckily with the low poly stuff, it shouldn't be too long because the files aren't humongous. It's already downloaded. So after you download it, you have to import it into your project. And as you can see, there's a bunch of stuff in this package. They have like a bunch of different demo scenes. You can choose to import those or not. I mean, the main things that you want are the FBXs, which is a file type of a model. You'll want all those and the materials and everything, but just to be safe, I'm just going to import all of them. This is what might take a while, but actually that was really fast. Then you'll see it over here, a new folder. It's called Low Poly Environment Pack, or whatever package that you decided to download from the asset store. You can close the package manager so it's not in your way. So now we have this whole package in here with all of these models. I got some trees, some mountains and stuff, things like that, and all the materials as well. So these are very simple, very smooth, very cartoonish looking assets. But like I said, on the asset store, there are tons of other more detailed models that are also free. So you can look around there if you're curious. Another place that I also like to get models from is a website called Sketchfab. I'm just going to show you how to download a model from Sketchfab correctly and import it correctly. Because getting files off the internet like this, sometimes they're packaged in weird ways. It's not nifty like the Unity asset store where everything's all nice and neat for you and automatically like populates into your project. With this case, things usually come in like zip folders. You have to unzip them and make sure you put the correct files into your project. So I've decided that I wanted to make a sort of a Japanese Zen garden. So I found this model on Sketchfab. It's a little Japanese lantern, very cute. And here's some pro tips from me. When you go to download 3D models, there are certain file types that Unity does not accept. And those are these like GLTF and GLBs. Unity cannot read those file types. The two file types that I suggest are OBJs and FBXs. All right, OBJ, FBX, those are good for Unity. Other ones, don't even consider those. That's because one, Unity can't read some of them, and two, sometimes they don't import properly, and you can lose some information like material information or texture information, and then you're scrambling to figure out how it's supposed to look or what textures to use. So luckily, this one is an OBJ. It's also low poly. As you can see, it only has 492 triangles, which might seem like a lot, but compared to other models that have thousands of triangles, this is great. So we're going to download that. Once that happens, it'll probably go to your downloads folder, and it is in a zip file, so you're going to have to extract that, and I'll just extract it all right to my downloads folder. So now that I've extracted that, we have this folder, and there's two folders inside, source and textures. Source, it might have a zip file inside of that, so you're going to have to unzip that too. So make sure everything is unzipped, and I am going to delete that zip file. So source usually has the object file itself, so the 3D object, it could be OBJ or FBX. It may have a texture, but then in textures, that's where you're going to see most of the textures. This one is a very simple texture, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue to import into our project. So one really awesome thing about Unity is that to import things, you just simply drag and drop. However, if you just drag and drop everything into your project, it's going to end up being a little cluttered. You're going to have a hard time finding stuff. So I'm going to teach you guys a little bit how to organize effectively in Unity, in the asset library as well as the hierarchy. So as you can see, this package that we downloaded earlier from the asset store, it made its own folder. That's great. But we probably want to organize our project by types of assets, right? So we have scenes, which we have the sample scene right here, and whatever other scenes you might add. But we probably want to have a folder for just models, right? So you're going to right click, create folder, and you can just say models. And you can do this so on and so forth for everything else that you add to your project, like shaders, lights, scripts, when you get into programming, but we're not going to be doing any of that today. So I am going to put the low poly environment pack into my models folder so I can keep things organized. And now I have this models folder. Now I know I have that Japanese standing lantern model I want to add. And here's another really important part. So, as we saw inside Japanese Standing Lantern, there were a bunch of folders inside. We don't want to drag source and textures into it, like separately, or the file itself in separately and everything else. The way that Unity reads these object files is that it takes the whole folder and reads all of the files in that together. So you want to have them all in one folder so that it knows what files to reference when like importing the object. So it knows which textures are part of that object and so on. And you'll see, even when you do that, it still might not know where your textures are supposed to go, and you're going to have to recreate the material. It's very annoying. I'm sure anyone that has worked with downloading models before knows what I'm talking about. So I dragged and dropped the entire Japanese Standing Lantern file into my project. I open it. I have the source. As you can see, and here's how you drag and drop into the scene, by the way, another drag and drop. As you can see, it has no material on it yet, and that's because this material, it doesn't reference the other textures. Go figure. So I will use this as an opportunity to show you guys how to make your own simple materials using Unity's material editor. So we know that this material doesn't work, so we're going to have to make our own. And I'm going to call this lantern matte. So in the inspector on the right side, you're going to see all these things about your model, or the material, sorry. You don't need to know exactly what all these mean, but just know there's a bunch of different things that you can put texture maps into for a material to look a certain way. And albedo, that's probably going to be your best friend. That's usually the main color. This is how I like to describe it. It's not exactly what it means, but it's going to be the main color of your material. And as you can see, this looks like the main color, right? It's got wood. It's got the little light in the corner here. So you're going to drag and drop that texture into it, and now you see the material has this look to it. We have a color on the material. Then you can drag and drop that material onto the model like that. So that's pretty nifty. And like I said, there's a bunch of other stuff that you can add to it, and I think if I go to the textures, there might be some other like textures to add to it, like this one, internal ground AO texture. It probably doesn't really do anything. So some models that you download from the internet are going to have tons of different textures that you're going to have to drag and drop into all of these little squares here, metallic, normal map, height map, and usually those textures, the name of the file is labeled. It will say like model diffuse texture or model height map texture. So that's how you're going to know how to hook those up correctly. Yeah, so that is how to create a simple material in Unity using pre-made texture files. You can also make your own materials just from scratch. Once again, right-click, create material, and then you can make any color you want, right? I can make it red by changing this albedo thing. I'll actually apply it to this so you can kind of see what it looks like. You can make it shiny by raising the metallic value, things like that. So I'm not going to show you guys everything, but just know that is something that you can play with to make your own materials in case you need a color that isn't in any of these pre-made assets that you downloaded from the asset store or Sketchfab or wherever. Okay, we have just a couple minutes left in the session. Hopefully that was enough time to let you guys start getting a little creative and adding some decorations and, making a bit of a mood to your scene. Does anyone want to share what they made? You're all going to have to share in the Discord if you want to get your badge in Discord, the P2P intro UI and world building badge. Well, you can take a screenshot and just put it right in the Discord right now. And make sure to put your email address in the Discord message, because that's how we'll eventually award you with a credential. Oh, put it in share. Thank you. To get that credential, and also just to share the awesome work that you've done in the workshop, you can take a screenshot of what you made and put that in the share channel on Discord and include your email address, please. You can do your name and email, I guess, if your Discord name doesn't have your actual name in it. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the first P2P workshop, Intro to Unity Editor and World Building in Unity. I hope you guys had a really fun time, and hopefully you can take this project home with you and continue working on it and decorating your environment. All right. Thank you, everyone. Yay.